Hi, Subhash.
Hey, Sinu.
So, as a part of our webinar series, we have been talking about some very specific topics. Today, I want to step back and see if we can talk about a collection of different things we do, which are, I would call, softer knowledge that will help us deliver our projects in a more predictable and a reliable fashion. And I want to kind of define what that means for the context. It means the project comes out within the time that has been promised, within the budget that has been planned, and it makes the business goals a lot more successful. It's not like you build an outstanding product with the best architecture and technology, and a lot of them successful, some of them not so successful, including our own. But out of all of them, we have learned something which is beginning to yield consistent results. Nowadays, we're a lot more successful in the projects we take. So what is that knowledge or experience, in a few words, that perhaps is useful to other people? So I want to talk about that. How does that sound to you?
Sounds good, Sinu. In fact, let me kick it off by saying that the simple practices are the ones that are oft forgotten. All we will do today is talk in very simple, commonsensical terms, but they have a major impact in how we build software.
Yeah, our goal is not to replace the formal education and the formal training people need on how to write code, how to design systems, how to build software. This is all that stuff we learn. But these are the things that are not necessarily in the textbooks or anything that you gain from experience, and at least what has worked for us. So that's the context here.
Yeah. Let's start off with how a product is initialized, right, with a set of requirements. Now, when people talk about attacking the product in the sense of building it and taking it to the market, they tend to make the mistake of actually thinking too big. They have this large vision in their mind and they want to get to it as soon as possible. And that's where they think the value lies for which the customer will pay. But the problem with working towards a vision in entirety is that you tend to take a long time to deliver it. And that's not almost always a good thing, because when you spend time building it without actually getting it into users' hands, the chances of you making mistakes is far, far higher. So a general recommendation is always to break those big vision-like goals into smaller stages that can be visualized, that can be acted on, that can be measured for impact. And we should concentrate on getting them to users to get their feedback very early in the game, rather than building something for years together and then getting it to them. So in effect, what I'm trying to say is, when you have a product and your vision is big, which is mostly the case with everyone, take smaller steps, break it down into smaller tangible goals, and get them out of your door first to users before envisioning the whole product in its entirety.
So just for clarity, Subhash, we're not suggesting people should not have a vision. What we are suggesting is your vision is only as good as the clarity in which you can envision. So once you have an idea, a vision, what we have found that has been really useful for us is, imagine a stage for which you have very good clarity. It could be the goal for a minimum viable product, or the first revenue product, or the ultimate vision. Whatever step you have, write that. If you can describe that very crisply in a sentence, in a paragraph, put it on a whiteboard or a slide. That's the vision. So from there, you can actually start targeting something, because other people in the development team, everybody can understand. So the granularity that what you are suggesting, take smaller steps, is imagine, let's say you have a pretty good idea where you want to be in 12 months or 18 or 24 months. that you have written, break it up into a handful of stages, let's say 2, 3, or 4 stages maximum. And the duration of a stage is, let's say, about 3 months. As an example, this is what has worked for us is, if you can set a goal, let's say that's about 3 months away, that you can describe to everybody, then you can actually target that vision and deliver that first stage, which will ensure you're actually going to reach that bigger goal or bigger vision that you have identified for yourself on a whiteboard. So the entire idea here, what we're talking about as first step, is don't target that is something too abstract or vague, but get to a stage that is a lot more tangible or like a lot more clearer in its definition, and then set up reaching there in about 3 or 4 stages and target each stage very specifically.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that's absolutely the first step. So Subhash, I want to lead to a kind of a second step as we talk about. As we target each stage, we have a good idea that each stage needs to do something. I feel like what we have learned was, within that stage, approach top down again. Do not approach bottoms up and say, I need to have these many features in each stage. Rather, I need to achieve this much. I need to achieve this outcome in this stage so that I'm successful in achieving that longer term goal. So do you have any thoughts on this?
So typically when you ask people to break down a large goal, what they tend to do is they come up with maybe 15 or 25 features that the product would have, and then they would draw earmarks around it. They would say this set of 5 features is in the first stage, the next set comes in the next stage, and so on, right? The problem with that is that when you think in the form of features, you're not thinking in the form of what ultimate results you want to achieve by building this product. Who are you building this for? How will they use it? What is the value that the product provides to them in their regular work or daily life? Unless you concentrate on these result-oriented aspects, what you build may actually not serve the user at all. It might be a feature and it will push the product forward, but will it actually serve the purpose, the goal for which the stage is aligned with? Probably not. So it's very important, like I said, to think in terms of what are the results I want to achieve. Sometimes the results may not be actually in the form of a software code or functionality. It might actually be something that is adjoining it, right? So as long as you're outcome and result oriented, whether you achieve the goal in the form of a software feature or in the form of a value add to the customer or in the form of even a message that is conveyed as part of the product, it doesn't really matter. So you talked about it. When you approach top down, when you think about what is the product for, what are its goals, why is it even existing? When you start from there and break down different tasks into stages and a goal associated with that stage, you tend to build right. You tend to build the features that are satisfying the goals in the first place. Otherwise, lacking that, you might actually build a ton of features, but they may not actually get you to the place that you want to get to.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap up this point, at every stage, we must ask ourselves, what must be proven true? What must be true in this stage so that I can reach that ultimate goal that we have identified ourselves as? Yeah. So you must ask that, and that is kind of almost like a gap analysis. What must be true now? And that becomes your outcome. That's what you target in a given stage. Absolutely, Subhash. And in addition, when we talk about focusing on outcomes and not necessarily the detailed features, we're also talking about not making any decisions such as a key technology selection or an architectural decision until we need to. Delay it. Don't delay it beyond what you should, when you should make a decision, but don't make the decision until you need to make that. Don't get locked into it. That is absolutely a part of this whole approach of focusing on the outcomes and not necessarily bottoms up either features or architecture or technology selection.
People call it the last possible moment, to say that you should wait until the final moment after which you can't delay the decision. That's when you should adopt it. And our experience says that, right? So, a clean slate, starting from scratch, is always so much more easier than actually changing something midway. So the farther you can push getting locked into a technology, a process, a practice, a vendor, it's much easier to change and shift according to what the product needs to do.
Absolutely. Stay in the middle of the room and don't get locked into any position you can't get out of on these decisions.
Yep.
So I want to move on, Subhash, to the next point. That is, what is kind of an attitude as we pursue in each stage? So we have talked about, hey, don't focus on bottoms-up features. Focus on top-down. Focus on top-down. And then you come up with some things you need to develop, whether they come from a product manager or some stakeholder, and say, this must happen this stage. So my view is that a lot of times what we do is sometimes even stepping outside our boundaries and asking, why? Why are you asking for this? Not only what, so that we have the context that is helpful for us to do the delivery of that in the right way. So this, I feel, has contributed as much as anything else that we have done in being able to deliver projects reliably. What are your thoughts?
I can give an example to help understand this, and it's part of a thought process more than actually something that is physically nailed down. Let's say we are building a donation app, and when we are building the software, we want to be as honest as possible to people. We want to tell what cause we are asking the donation for, how do people pay, how did the money they pay go towards actually helping with the cause, so on and so forth, right? But the moment you ask, why are you building this, questions come up, as in, why would people actually donate? Why would people actually go to a software product and pay money to somebody? So unless the why is backing up with the problem statement, you tend to get the feature wrong, in the sense that you build that something that performs the function, but you don't understand the why. Now let's talk about it in a different way. The purpose of a donation app that you would want to build is to get as many donations as possible. So for that, the most important aspect is to make the process as seamless as possible, preferably one click or two clicks, right? So if you achieve this outcome, that you can send out a message to somebody and they can actually pay by clicking on something or by just replying to a text message, then you achieved your goal. You don't need to actually build a wholesome feature and a software product to get somebody to do this, right? So net, when you ask why would somebody act in a certain way, or why do I want to build this aspect into the product, what aspect of the product do I want to represent to the customer, you tend to focus on the value that you're providing to the customer, and then the feature that is built is tightly connected to it. There's a one-to-one connection. You know that I'm building this feature because I have that goal in my mind, the value that I want to provide to the customer. So there's a mapping that is very closely associating these two aspects.
Absolutely. For us, it has been helpful primarily because when we are doing a project, every little thing a developer or an architect does cannot be communicated with the product manager, stakeholders, involve them in the decision, etc. So if the whole team knows why certain thing is being asked or designed for, they make better decisions. So in short, as a practical implementable step to institutionalize this thought, there should not be any feature, any functionality that's not clearly mapped to a value proposition, which in turn is mapped to an outcome we want in a stage. And in fact, at Team 8, we actually have built a kind of a keying, whether you're using Jira to track tickets or whatever way you track your various features and functionality you develop, how to appropriately tag them to the right value proposition, etc., which absolutely helps you to document, to memorialize that why, the context of why you're developing a feature. Because as the product ages, as things progress and the system matures, you sometimes lose why did we do what we did. So it's absolutely helpful. This has tremendously helped us, again, numerous times. So moving on now, Subhash. We talked about a number of things that are practical steps, but the attitude itself for the entire team at the early stages of developing a stage and delivering to people, I feel like it should not be in a hurry to and say, hey, we're done with it. Let us throw this piece of code or the system over the wall to whoever gives it to the users or the users, and let's move on. So the whole attitude is a lot more on learning from that particular stage. Again, what are we trying to learn and why? The purpose is to learn to do the following development activities in a lot more meaningful way. So the path converges, the development path converges to get to that business goal that we're targeting, for which we have a clear idea. So that is the purpose. So what we want to learn are the things that we were not either 100% sure of, or something to de-risk in terms of what users like. It could be a small thing like in the UX, or it could be a bigger thing. It could be certain workflow item. It could be anything, but that's what we are doing. Again, it's an innovation project, your entire focus is delivering a new piece of technology or a new innovation. It's a slightly different argument, and we can talk about that separately. But in a generalized way, across most of our projects, what we have learned was that attitude about, hey, listen, producing something and throwing it over, I'm not done. I am the more important, lot more important. And actually what we're producing is that learning aspect. So you have, imagine you have two accounts, like a checking and savings account. Similar to that, your code is one thing, your key code keeps growing. The other one is like a savings account. The learning, your knowledge base keeps growing as well. So that moving to that longer term benefit for the project of learning mode at each stage is a lot more important. Do you agree with this, sir?
Yeah, and I would put it in an even more generic way, that when we build a product, we should adopt experimental mindset, a humility-based approach to understanding what the users want, not just what we want to build. We have plans, we have this vision, we want to get something to the end, to the user's hands, but we should always be thinking about or doubting ourselves when we produce a feature, whether it actually meets the user's expectations. If it turns out that it matches the expectation perfectly, good, all good, right? Everybody is happy. But if it doesn't, at least we have a mechanism that is built into the software itself that tells us that something is wrong and there is an area that we could improve on.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Bosch, I want to go to kind of another, pretty much the last softer point that we want to talk about. So at every stage, as the development team gets in and think about either a set of features or a functionality or a technology, they get so fast to about 90 or 95% completion point, super fast. And then people spend almost as much time, if not more time, completing that last 5% or so, trying to almost perfect. Just talking about what you just said, right? We need to almost be suspicious. Hey, are we on solid ground to really bake this thing completely or get something to the users to go learn, and with the suspicion that we may have to change what we have done? So that whole learning aspect, right? So the attitude that should generally be helpful to everybody. I mean, wherever we had the opportunity, we have successfully implemented this, is get something out, complete it and get it to users, rather than perfect that last 5%. Hey, you know what? we are very early stage. Let's say you're in a proof of concept or even in a in a minimum viable product stage. You are trying to say, is a round button better than square button? Unless that is the core tenet of your product. Why that matters? We're talking about majority of the cases. You should not try to finesse the product at the early stages. Rather, you should be completing it because it really helps you to get in front of the users and achieve the other things we're talking about. This attitude in really implementing it, right? So the setting a goal as what is good enough for us, so that we can claim, hey, look, we're not putting a crappy code out there. We're not putting something that users try. Out of every 4 times, it fails 2 times. So the feedback they give you is completely contaminated. We cannot really do that. It's still functional. It is good. You have to define what that good enough is. So maybe out of 20 times, it may fail 1 time. Maybe 19 times it works. Just as an example. But the idea is at each stage, you have an outcome. You have focusing on your value propositions, and you're focusing on learning from that stage. To help all of them, you need to actually complete and get it out. Get it out, get it out, get it out. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and there are 2 kinds of mechanisms at work here, or from a mentality point of view. There's an internal push that this attitude brings, where you might be a perfectionist who might actually get waylaid by spending too much time working on the same thing. So there's an internal push to you telling, as soon as the checkpoint is completed, you are supposed to push. Get it out as soon as possible at the closest point possible rather than pushing it further. So there's an internal pressure mechanism that is in there to get things out of your radar. There's also an external push in the sense that when you get things to users, the real validation and the feedback process starts. That's the real use case that you want to satisfy, right? So the earlier you get a product to the user's hands, the better it is for you because your learning starts earlier in the game. So they both actually work together to say that whenever you have built something that is good enough, just go ahead and ship it. Don't worry about whether it's perfect. In fact, many people say that if your software is polished and looks perfect by the time it reaches end users, you're already slow. You have not. You could have gone to market. You could have gone with the feature to users a long time before that.
Yeah. Thanks, Subhash. I think just talking about these 5 different points, it brings together things that we have institutionalized, we have developed a discipline about, and that have significantly contributed to our success in many of the projects. I want to quickly summarize a few things that have helped us, that are beyond the harder computer science and writing software. Those practices are essentially have a top-down approach. Don't approach things from, I want this feature. Approach why you are trying to do that. And you take a bigger goal and break it up into smaller stages, approximately about 3 months out, and focus on each of those steps. What must I achieve in this step so that I can achieve my ultimate goal? And treat each stage as a discovery. Do not act like we know what this stage should be. Let us ship it out. Let's move on to the next stage. It's like building a high rise. At each floor, you must make sure you have built it correctly to build the next layer to the higher level. So the learning mode is a lot more important than I'm done kind of mode. And again, do not try for perfection and finessing at the early stages. Rather, ship it so that you are putting in front of the customers to eliminate any assumptions. You are validating them, and you are making sure you're on a solid and more solid ground to not only to build the right product, build the product that helps you achieve the business goal that you set out to achieve. Subhash, any closing comments?
The whole attitude that we're talking about, Sinu, here is you have a whole ball game of what technology components to use, what is the architecture style that you would use, what is the kind of team you need to have to build the product in that architectural side. So there's a lot of things that you need to think about from building a product point of view. But we are saying that unless this attitude-based aspects are part of your culture, part of your code, it doesn't necessarily translate into something that is aligned with the product vision. So by using these steps, we are telling that you will get to build your product right and build the right things while you're at it.
Thank you, Subhash. And at Teammate, if we can help you with any of the things we talked about, if you like to reach us, you can visit teammatesolutions.com, and we are here to help you and wish you all the best and building your products like the best of them. Thank you.